Hey guys and girls, I'm Linksword123 and welcome to a very special video, because today's video is going to be a theory that I made up in my head yesterday while I was playing Zelda Twilight Princess. This theory, as you can read on the thumbnail, is about Twilight Princess could actually be URA Zelda. Yeah, that's right. It's really mind-blowing, but it's actually possible. I will give you a little tour around what is URA Zelda actually, and afterwards I will be talking about how Twilight Princess can be URA Zelda. So first of all, what is URA Zelda? URA Zelda, translated from Japanese to English, is basically another Zelda. URA Zelda was planned for the N64DD, also called Nintendo 64 disk drive, as an expansion disc created for Ocarina of Time. So actually it's not another Zelda, it was just an expansion for the original Ocarina of Time, as we know it today. But due to the disk drive was a huge failure in Japan, they stopped and cancelled every kind of production of this console. Even some of the discs are still available on the internet to a very high price, maybe $100 and over. Sadly, URA Zelda can't be found on eBay or anywhere, because basically the disc wasn't even created. But we got some few rumors going around on the internet, and that's what we have to go out from. So, the main features in URA Zelda should be harder and rearranged dungeons, such as dungeons in Zelda Ocarina of Time Master Quest, but probably with more changes and actual game design of the dungeon. Another thing that URA Zelda should expand in Ocarina of Time is new areas, for example the Unicorn Fountain. The Unicorn Fountain is a very discussed object in the Zelda community, because this fountain is actually rumored to be in Ocarina of Time. Many fans still think the Unicorn Fountain is actually able to be found in Ocarina of Time this day. But sadly the Unicorn Fountain was cancelled at this point of the development of Ocarina of Time. The Unicorn Fountain is basically just a beta version of the Great Fairy Fountain, but the Unicorn Fountain looks a little bit different from the Great Fairy Fountain as we know it today. Just compare the Unicorn Fountain screenshot here to the original Great Fairy Fountain as we know it today. There is a huge difference, but still it is actually the same area. Another thing, which is my favorite thing, that URA Zelda should expand is, for example, the temples. An ice temple, a sky temple, and even a temple of the light should actually be able to be found around Hyrule. This sounds really weird, because I think Ocarina of Time is pretty filled up with anything that can be found. So where are the place for the ice temple, for the sky temple, and the temple of the light? I don't know, but maybe we should actually get a whole nother area for these kind of temples. URA Zelda will also include new items. Rumor says, for example, an ice hammer. A very early screenshot also shows this kind of ice hammer, as you can see here. It looks pretty cool, but maybe it was just an early Megaton hammer. I don't know, we got no clues about this. However, after the GameCube release of Zelda Ocarina of Time Master Quest, fans kept thinking this version was URA Zelda, due to the harder dungeons. Even Miyamoto said it was not URA Zelda in any kind of way. It doesn't even include any kind of features from URA Zelda, but fans keep thinking this is URA Zelda, or maybe just got some few items from URA Zelda. But maybe the fans are actually right, because in Japanese Zelda Ocarina of Time Master Quest is actually translated to Seruda no Densetsu Tokino no Ocarina URA. So basically Master Quest is also called URA on Japanese, but also called another Zelda. This sounds really interesting, because now we actually got the word URA in the actual main title. But what made the fans thought so strong about Master Quest was URA Zelda. You see, years ago, probably in the early days when emulators of the N64 were just created, a leaked ROM came out on the internet called Zelda Ocarina of Time, the Debug ROM. This ROM were made to run on the original N64, even though the actual in-game was the version of the Master Quest. How? Yeah, I can ask myself the same question. Anyways, the ROM were one of the biggest discoveries in the whole Zelda community and also in the Zelda modding community, because this ROM is actually able to be modded to the end. So if you have been playing any kind of mod, Zelda's birthday maybe, then it's actually a debug ROM you're playing on. A whole nother thing is the debug ROM is also containing a lot of beta content from the early days of Ocarina of Time, and even also some N64DD content, so the disk drive content. Just to round everything up about the debug ROM, then it's basically just the original Master Quest as we know it today. But if you select the very first file, actually file 1, then you will see a map select screen where the player could manually choose between the different locations in the game. From the map select screen, he could also choose some different levels ending on N64DD, which is rumored to be forgotten maps from URA Zelda, in some kind of way. Textures and actual models of these areas are actually in the debug ROM and can still be found by using memory data in some different modding programs. But anyways, when all of this is said, how can Twilight Princess be URA Zelda? It sounds totally impossible, right? But listen carefully now. It's now where I will exploit the whole theory about Twilight Princess might be URA Zelda. First of all, there is so much to tell you guys and girls, because we got a lot of different tiny things to pick up from Twilight Princess that actually has a little connection to URA Zelda. First of all, we got 9 temples all at all in Twilight Princess. The Forest Temple, the Goron Mines, the Lakebed Temple, the Arbiter's Grounds, Snow Peak Ruins, Temple of Time, City in the Sky, and Palace of the Twilight, and Hyrule Castle for sure. All of the temples got different names, and not much of them can actually be compared to the names in Ocarina of Time, even though some of the names are actually also appearing in Ocarina of Time. The Forest Temple, Temple of Time, and Hyrule Castle. But as I was talking about earlier, a Sky Temple, an Ice Temple, and even Temple of the Light should actually appear in URA Zelda. And all of these 3 temples are actually appearing in Twilight Princess. How? Yeah, City in the Sky is literally just the Sky Temple, just with another name. Temple of Time might be the Temple of Light due to some symbols I will be talking about later on that are appearing around in the temple. The Snow Peak Ruins is actually just the Ice Temple because, yeah, it's surrounded by snow, and even inside the temple you are also seeing a lot of snow. If you look at your map screen while you are in the Goron Mines, you might see some very familiar parts from the Fire Temple in Ocarina of Time. You can see a comparison here on the screen with the Fire Temple at the left and the Goron Mines at the right side of your screen. These kind of round circles are actually appearing in both maps. It sounds really weird, but I think this has something to do with the same temple. Because the Fire Temple, okay, it's literally just a Fire Temple, but the Goron Mines, you are actually seeing a lot of lava, and we got a lot of the same enemies as we do in the Fire Temple and also in the Dodongo's Cavern in Ocarina of Time. We are meeting the Dodongos, we are meeting some bats with surrounded with fire, and even Lizard Fuzz is also appearing in the Goron Mines, as they do in Ocarina of Time. Pretty interesting. As I said, URA Zelda should have an obtainable ice hammer, same as Twilight Princess in some kind of way. What I'm referring to, or what I'm trying to referring to, is in the Snow Peak Ruins, the Ice Temple, as we can call it that, Link is needed to acquire the ball and chain. This is not any kind of a hammer, but this piece of hairy iron can actually break ice, rocks and... did I say ice? Anyways, I know the ball and chain is far away from a hammer, but I mean, it's a heavy item. You get it in a dungeon based on snow. What is the difference? It sounds pretty weird to you maybe, but if you think about it, it might be something to do with the same thing. Or maybe it's just me that are crazy. One of the smaller interesting things about the items is the horse call. The horse call can call opponent to you while you are at Hyrule Field maybe in Kakariko Village, wherever you stand. You can call Epona and you will be ready to ride it. But actually what makes this horse call really interesting is due to the song it plays when Link blows into it. If you haven't recognized it, it is Epona's song from Ocarina of Time. I know this horse is Epona, and also the one appears in Ocarina of Time is also Epona. But since this got a little connection because you're learning this song from along, it might have a weird connection to it. I don't know. If you have beaten the Temple of Time in Twilight Princess, you might have been fighting Amogoma. Is that how you pronounce it? I don't know. Does the name sound familiar? I think it does, because if you have also been playing Ocarina of Time, you might have been seen Goma in the Deku Tree. Goma is the very first boss in Ocarina of Time, and if you compare these two names, you see a very huge similarity. You can see, at least Goma is a parasite, and Amogoma, how do you even pronounce this? Anyways, Amogoma thing is actually just a spider, but they got some kind of the same name. And if you look on other spiders in the whole Zelda timeline, they are not called anything with Goma. So basically, this boss maybe got some kind of a sister, and it's just Goma, I don't know. But it sounds really similar to each other, so maybe this is also a little connection. A very interesting music part is actually also appearing in Twilight Princess. In the Sacred Forest, Link meets this frustrating Skull Kid, also appears in Ocarina of Time, this mother, who tries to teleport away from you all the time you are in the Sacred Forest, is also playing a very familiar song. Take a listen. Every single Zelda fan probably knows the theme. It's the first notes from the original Lost Woods theme from Ocarina of Time. Also, the Sacred Forest reminds me a lot about the one from Ocarina of Time, because you are running around in these different rooms. You need to figure out the real way to actually reach Skull Kid and not getting lost in these woods. Pretty interesting, right? If you're one of the persons who got a lot of time on your hands and never skips a cutscene in Twilight Princess, you might have seen Dark Link. What? Yeah, Dark Link is actually appearing in Twilight Princess. It sounds pretty weird, but we have seen Dark Link before. Sadly, you never get the chance to fight him as you do in Ocarina of Time, but still, Dark Link is actually appearing. Actually, not only one Dark Link is appearing, a lot of these Dark Links is actually appearing. In Twilight Princess, a lot of symbols is also appearing around in Hyrule. For example, a lot of these symbols is actually symbolizing something from Ocarina of Time. I got some few examples taken out here, but there are much more examples around in Twilight Princess. For example, the doors in the Lakebed Temple wears a very identical symbol to Zora's Sapphire. Link gets this sapphire from Princess Ruto after beating Jabu Jabu's belly. But if you look here, it is basically just the same symbol, just converted to a tribal looking version of the sapphire here. It's amazing, guys. Once again, the doors, this time in the Forest Temple, wears a symbol that looks nearly like the symbol Link has on his Kokiri shield. Just take a look here. It is basically the same icon, and it also represents the same thing, just as the Lakebed Temple. The Lakebed Temple and Zora's Sapphire, it has something to do with water. For example here, Forest Temple and the Kokiri Shield, it's both Kokiri. So basically this is also a great connection between Twilight Princess and Ocarina of Time. And also around the whole Temple of Time you will be able to find symbols that looks just like the symbol that appears on the light medallion from Ocarina of Time. For example, take this clock thing. What are that? It's just the light medallion. As I said before, I could continue for a while with all these symbols, but it was just some few examples here. You can try your way to find more of these symbols, but it takes a lot of time. Even though if you are appearing in one of these temples, it shouldn't be that hard. So the next thing I will be talking about is the actual map. Because if you compare the Twilight Princess map to the Ocarina of Time map, you will actually see a lot of similarities. Even though you need to make the Twilight Princess map upside down and reverse it, just to make it look exactly like Ocarina of Time's map. I have done it for you, and just take a look here, you will actually see pretty fast it is nearly the same map. So let's begin analyzing. If we look at the Twilight Princess map and take all the comparisons to the Ocarina of Time map, we will see, for example, the desert fits perfectly for the actual area in Ocarina of Time. Also, Temple of Time is appearing at the upper part of the map, just as Ocarina of Time does. That's also pretty interesting, because Temple of Time in Twilight Princess is damaged and really destroyed, but you actually makes this into a recreated version by time traveling to the older version. Interesting. The next thing is Kakariko Village and Death Mountain. The Death Mountain is not exactly at the same position as it is in Ocarina of Time, but still it got this connection from Kakariko Village to the Death Mountain, so I think this is still a pretty interesting thing at the actual map. In the middle of the whole map we got Hyrule Field, which is just as in Ocarina of Time. At the lower part of the map we will see Lake Hylia and Zora's River. As you can see, these two areas is not made to lay so close to each other. But if you think about it, Lake Hylia is made to be in this ice part of the map, which means maybe it's just frozen, just as it is in Ocarina of Time when you are adult. The connection from Lake Hylia to Zora's River in Ocarina of Time should probably be these roads based on rivers and actual water areas. If the map should be identical to Ocarina of Time's map, Zora's River should be much closer to Kakariko Village. So here I lose my thoughts a little bit. The next thing that I will be talking about is the 3 temples. Oh, this is my favorite part, because these 3 temples is actually rumored to appear in URA Zelda and also in very early versions of Ocarina of Time. The first temple I will be talking about is the Snow Peak Ruins. There's not so much to tell you guys, because we got no clues about the actual snow temple from URA Zelda. We had no screenshots, we got nothing to work with here. But if we compare these things to Ocarina of Time, for example, we got City in the Sky, aka the Sky Temple, we got Temple of Time, or the Light Temple, and then we got the Snow Temple, which is the Snow Peak Ruins. So it will be fitting perfectly if this was a planned snow temple, just as URA Zelda should have. For sure this sounds probably a little bit stupid, because it is a whole nother Zelda, so for sure it got some other dungeons than Ocarina of Time does. But if you compare the thoughts between Twilight Princess and Ocarina of Time, it actually got a lot of similarities, right? What I'm trying to say is it will just be fitting perfectly to the Sky Temple, the Snow Temple, and Temple of the Light, or Temple of Time. It will be fitting perfectly to URA Zelda. So in my mind, it will be most logical that the Snow Peak Ruins is the actual Snow Temple, or Ice Temple, whatever we can call it. Just to brief up how the Snow Temple actually should be. Some rumors says that the ice cavern that actually made it into Ocarina of Time is a shortened version of the actual ice temple for URA Zelda. So, the ice cavern is basically a cavern not some kind of a temple, not some kind of a castle, not some kind of a ruin that lays out in like nowhere. So the Snow Peak ruins is just a castle, and the ice cavern, yeah, it's a cavern. So it's two different areas for sure, but maybe it got something to do with each other. I have no idea, but it could be pretty interesting, right? So maybe the Snow Peak ruins is just some kind of a idea from the Snow Temple, but nothing like the actual Snow Temple. The next temple I will be talking about is City in the Sky. This is my favorite temple in Twilight Princess because there is so much to talk about. The name says it all. It is a city in the sky, and basically that's it. But if you think about it, is a temple, aka a dungeon, up in the sky, just like an actual sky temple from URA Zelda. Once again, we don't have so much information an actual sky temple from URA Zelda, but we actually got two screenshots that I believe to be some kind of a sky temple. You can see them here in comparison to City in the Sky, and I think we can see some kind of similarity between the screenshots and the actual footage I'm also showing you guys and girls. To me, the screenshot shows us a lot of really cool information about this dungeon, because you can clearly see some huge stone looking walls, some great looking pillars, just like we do in City in the Sky. Also, the texture colors are also pretty much in the same way as City in the Sky. It also looks like Link is looking in the horizon to the sun, so it could also indicate that Link is high up in the sky. The only reason that I can't believe an actual sky temple should be in actual Ocarina of Time is, where is the actual entrance to this? A little fun fact is, by using GameShark codes you can actually recreate a Japanese name saying Wind Medallion in Ocarina of Time. That's pretty cool, because the Wind Medallion should probably be obtainable in the Sky Temple, or Wind Temple, whatever we're gonna say here. The last temple I will be talking about is Temple of Time, which got the exactly same name as the one appearing in Ocarina of Time. But this time the temple is expanded with enemies, puzzles and much more. Holy! You can't even compare this kind of temple in Twilight Princess to the one in Ocarina of Time, because Ocarina of Time's Temple of Time, it's boring. You can only pick up the Master Sword and boom, you're out again. But the name still keeps my thoughts up about the Temple of Time in Twilight Princess is actually the Temple of the Light from URA Zelda, because Temple of Time is a place where you're retrieving the Light Medallion in Ocarina of Time, and it's basically just based on mostly lighting, even also in Twilight Princess. So it's still got this connection to URA Zelda, even though it's called something else. It sounds pretty interesting, and I think this is really something that can make your thoughts really strong about Twilight Princess is URA Zelda, because of these three temples that are actually appearing in Twilight Princess. And what do we have here? Yeah, I can tell you. This is just some very hidden content from Twilight Princess that appears to be able to be found by using some different programs on your computer. The most interesting thing here is actually the mirror shield from Ocarina of Time is also appearing in the content of Twilight Princess. I don't know why they put it in here, but it's actually appearing in the content, and I don't know, maybe you can't say it is URA Zelda due to this damn shield, but it has something to do with it, right? Or maybe just a mirror shield should appear in Twilight Princess. And that means Ocarina of Time also got this mirror shield, even with this exact same icon. So that's pretty interesting, right? So I'm basically done now. Thank you so much for hearing my voice the last minutes here, because it's maybe just me that are crazy that creates a weird theory about two different games and even an unreleased game that might have some kind of connection. But the whole idea with this is pretty simple. As I said to start with of this video, then URA Zelda was just an expansion for Ocarina of Time. So call it Ocarina of Time Updated. for sure Twilight Princess can't be the exact same version as URA Zelda was planned to be. But I'm 100% sure some elements from URA Zelda made it into Twilight Princess. Make sure to throw a like after this video, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you want to see more of this stuff, and then make sure to write a little comment about what you think about this video and what you want to see next time I make a video. And make sure to have a great day and a night, and wherever you live, just make sure to have a great time of your life. Maybe watching this video again, I don't know. Maybe you don't want to waste your time. I don't know. Anyways, thank you so much for watching this episode, guys and girls. See ya!